Hey everyone, welcome to homework, 4-point mid-unit assessment day. So this first question is asking you to figure out what the x-intercepts or the zeros are, the y-intercept and the vertex, and sketch a graph. Okay, so we are going to start by looking at our x-intercepts. Because this is already factored, this is easy because I can set each one to 0. So this would subtract 3 on both sides, and then we get x equals -3. So one of them is -3, 0. X, oops, I'm going to add 1 to both sides. We get x equals 1. That's 1, 0. So now we have our x-intercepts. So I can go ahead and mark that on here at, these are really hard to read, 2, 3, -3 there, and +1 here. Now, this also means that our vertex is going to be in between these, so we can use the midpoint formula and add these x values, divide by 2, and that will tell me what's in between them. So we end up with -2/2, which equals -1. And so my midpoint then here would be at -1. And so my axis of symmetry is going to be along this dotted line here. So that means that this is the x value of the vertex. Now I need the y value. So I'm going to go back and plug that into here. -1 plus 3 times -1 minus 1. And so we get 2 times -2, which is -4. So at -1, -4, that is where my vertex is. So notice that's directly in between those two. Now the next thing is my y-intercept. Looking at this, I can tell that my constant will be -3, so that means my y-intercept is here. That also means there's another point opposite of that, right? Because it's symmetrical, and so I'm going to just do my best to sketch this graph, right? But you're going to just sketch a graph. It should be more even than minus. But that's what you're doing just to show those x-intercepts, the y-intercept, and that vertex. Let's look at this one. This one is interesting because we have a 2 outside of here. So actually what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and distribute that through the first set of parentheses. And once you've multiplied it through 1, when you multiply with this one, that will also distribute the 2 into this one. So you don't need to multiply it through both. That would be redundant. So now I'm going to go ahead and solve for x. And so 2x plus 4 equals 0. 2x equals -4, x equals -2 is one of them, and then the other one is x equals 2. And so we're going to go ahead and solve this to be 2 and -2 for my x-intercepts. Now I need to find my vertex, and so let's add those together. -2 plus 2 divided by 2 is 0. And you might have seen that, right? Because these are opposite of each other. If I plug in 0 up here, we'll get 2 times 4 times -2. And so we'll get 2 times -8, which is -16. So 0, -16, all the way down there. And then also note that this is our y-intercept. So in this case, the vertex and the y-intercept are the same. And so you can sketch your graph like this. And you'll see that, and notice we have 4 times -2, which is -8. But we also have to multiply this 2 here. And so this would be -16. And so you can see that that would be our constant there if you were to multiply all of those together. Let's take a look at the next one. So we have 3x times x minus 4. This is also a factor, so I can set that equal to 0. Divide both sides by 3, that means x has to equal 0. Add 4 to both sides, that means that x is 4. So now we have 0 and 4 as our x-intercepts. You can see immediately in between that is 2, but mathematically x plus 4 divided by 2 is 2. So now to find the vertex, I'm going to plug that in here. With 6 times -2 is -12. So that'll be 2 comma negative 12. And then my y-intercept here, now notice that if I were to go ahead and to distribute this here, we would get 3x squared minus 12x, and that means our constant is 0, and it does pass through the origin, so that is your y-intercept right there. Okay, so your y-intercept and one of your x-intercepts are actually the same in this case. All right, it says which output is 0. So this is thinking about which of these functions have an output of 0 when the input is negative 4. So if I put negative 4 here, I get negative 16. Not that one. I put negative 4 here, I get positive 16. If I put negative 4 here, I get 8 plus negative 8, or 8 minus 8, so that does equal 0. And if I put negative 4 here, I get negative 8 minus 8 equals negative 16. That is not true. All right, it says here are some definitions of the functions followed by some possible inputs for the functions. For each function, decide which input or inputs would give an output of 0. So you can go through and substitute each one of these in here. I wouldn't recommend that you do that. You can though if you want, but you can also set these to be equal to 0 and determine what value would make that 0. So if I add 5 to both sides, x equals 5. So 5 for this one makes that 0. Here you might automatically recommend negative 5. So for each one of these, you're going to go down and do that. Mathematically, you all are capable of doing that yourselves. I will note when you get down to here, you need to set each one to 0. So x plus 5 equals 0, and x plus 3 equals 0. You should have two answers for this one, and this one. And then it says, here are some graphs of B, F, and M. Label each intercept with its coordinates and be prepared to explain how you know. So B is this one right here. And so we would say that this one is negative 5 comma 0, because when I plug in negative 5 into this equation, I get 0. That's my x-intercept. My y-intercept is when x is 0. So if I put 0 in here, that would be 5. And so this is 0 comma 5. All right. Here we're looking at F. That's this one right here. And so you might recognize immediately negative 6 is your y-intercept. So this is 0 comma negative 6 because that's your constant in that equation. And then our x-intercept is what would make this 0. So 3x minus 6 equals 0. 3x equals 6. X equals 2. So our x-intercept is 2 comma 0. And then lastly, we have M. M is this equation right here. You can see negative 1 and 3 will be our x-intercepts. This is negative 1 comma 0 and 3 comma 0. And then it's asking us for the y-intercept, not the vertex. So the y-intercept here would be negative 3, 0 comma negative 3, because that would be the constant if we were to multiply and distribute these. All right, it says for each function, clearly identify the input that would give the output of 0. Again, this is the same thing you just did above. If we have x plus 10 equals 0, then x equals negative 10. That would give us an output of 0. 10 minus 10 gives us 0. 8 minus 8 gives us 0. Negative 8 minus, ooh, this is tricky. So negative 8 minus x equals 0. We're going to add 8 to both sides, and we'll get negative x equals 8. But then I need to go ahead and divide by this negative 1, and so I get x equals negative 8. And if I do that, negative 8 minus a negative 8 becomes negative 8 plus 8, so that is 0. So this is negative 8. All right, so you can do E and F on your own, solve for what would make that 0. And then it says match each function to a graph in the previous question and be ready to explain your matches. So this is very similar to what we did above, where if you can recognize the x-intercept or the y-intercept and your slope, then you will be able to match these graphs quite nicely. So let's take a look at x plus 10. This is a positive slope with a y-intercept of 10. So we should see something with a positive slope and an x-intercept, or sorry, a y-intercept that is above. And And so there's a couple that might be. That could be C or it could be D. Now notice in front of the x is a slope of 1. So that is increasing 1 over 1 versus D has a steeper slope. So I'm going to say that C is matched to x plus 10 because it has what looks like of a slope of 1 over 1 and a y-intercept of 10. X minus 10, still a positive slope, but this time it's going to cut underneath the x-axis, so it should be below. And again, though, we have a situation where we have a 1-to-1 slope, 1 over 1, and so our x-intercept would be 0, 10, and our y-intercept would be our x-intercept would be 10, 0, and our y-intercept would be negative 0, negative 10. And so B matches the best with this one because we have a negative y-intercept, a positive x-intercept, and it seems to be at a slope of 1 over 1. Okay? So then we have 8 minus x. Well, this can also be written as negative x plus 8, which means we have a negative slope and a positive y-intercept of 8, and then also our x-intercept would be 8, 0. So A matches the best with this one here at 8 minus x, or negative x plus 8. Okay? Since I've done the first 3 for you and eliminated 3 of those matches, I'd love for you to go ahead and continue with the rest of them, figure out which ones align with D, E, and F. Label the intercepts on each graph with their coordinates. So we're going to go back here and say again that this one would be a 0, 8, and this one would be 8, 0. Here we have a y-intercept of negative 10, so 0, negative 10, and a x-intercept of 10, 0. Here, my y-intercept is 0, 10. My x-intercept would be negative 10, 0. All right, so you would need to go back and do the same thing for D, E, and F, and I do want you to do that on your own. Then you can check off that you've done this. So for each function, the last one is to find the x-intercepts, zeros, the y-intercept, and the vertex. So similar to what you did at the very beginning. So we're going to set both of these to 0. We'll get x equals negative 10 here, add 8 to both sides here. Then 2x equals 8, divide by 2, x equals 4. So our x-intercepts are negative 10, 0, and 4, 0. This means then the vertex is negative 10 plus 4 divided by 2 gives me negative 6 over 2, which is negative 3. To find the y value, I'm going to plug it back in here. So I'll get negative 3 plus 10 times, negative 3 times 2 is negative 6 minus 8. So this will be 7 times negative 14. It's a pretty big y value there, but we want 28 carry the 2, 9, so negative 92. So negative 3, negative 92 will be our vertex. And then the y-intercept, I can look at what my constant will be. And 10 times negative 8 is negative 80. So 0, negative 80. And that makes sense with our vertex because that means that the vertex would be below that, but on its way up, it would hit the y-axis. All right, so for B and C, I want you to try those on your own. Follow the same model that I just showed you. Set your values, right? X-intercepts are when y equals 0. So you set each factor to 0. And then the y-intercept is the constant in standard form. And then your vertex, to get the x value, we add, let's see, this is x sub 1. We add, well, actually, that's a great example. Our x-intercepts, once we have those x-intercepts, right, say we have x sub 1, y sub 1, and then x sub 2 and y sub 2 for our two x-intercepts. Then the vertex is x sub 1 plus x sub 2 divided by 2 will give us the x value, and then you plug that back in or substitute to get the y value. Okay? All right. You can then check your answers on your calculator to make sure you've done that correctly. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Make sure to review all of this tonight. Happy homeworking, and I'll see you tomorrow.